Hello and welcome to the Change Cafe with Jay. I am so excited for you to see this interview with neuroscientist Lynda Shaw on understanding how we can rewire our brains to work for us during change and uncertainty. Her research has proven that compassion, empathy, and striving for equality improves business growth and success, and why these are the most effective leadership traits during change. So get your coffee, champers, or a cocktail and get comfy.
So Lynda, we actually connected on LinkedIn because we're both Brunel alumni. And what I loved about your work is that you combine both the academic side, so the science behind change, but also you have quite an in-depth understanding of the real kind of practical element of it in terms of the business.
Yeah, well, basically, I've had 3 businesses in the past. The largest business, I had 20 staff and 2,000 members of a health club. So that's the largest business I've had. The others were smaller than that. And then I carried on doing what I was doing. And then I decided I'd go back to school. And I did an A-level in English for night school. And then I thought, oh, I like this. I didn't think I liked studying at all. So I took myself off to university. And I studied for 9 years full time. So I got 3 degrees, the third being my doctorate in neuroscience. And so I'm a bit of an unusual creature in that I've got 1 foot in academia, 1 foot in business. So I sort of get how some of the ways the brain works, because we don't know everything about the brain by any means, but why people do what they do, how we can change our behavior, how we can be in charge of changing our behavior, which is really key, because I'm very much in helping people have some control in their lives and not feel so overwhelmed all the time. So I understand the psychology of these things, but I also understand the impact on business, how managing a team is really crucial to the cash flow, a healthy cash flow of a business. And without a healthy cash flow, you have no business.
I think one of the things that I mentioned to my community that I was going to have this call, and they put in some questions, they put in some stuff that they were dealing with right now to kind of put to you. And one of those things was definitely kind of a struggle to keep a level head, and not only with kind of themselves and kind of keeping consistent and keeping their emotions under control, but sort of getting a little bit annoyed about their team's emotions. And I know that sounds terrible to say, right? Because we know that everyone's going through their own thing, but because they're struggling themselves, maybe they're struggling to provide that kind of empathy and that compassion to others, especially when they're seeing some kind of like almost apathy from their staff, or the kind of real demotivation. So I think some of the questions that came up is, how do they deal with it themselves, right? But also, how do you deal with underperformance when this is a tricky time?
It's a very tricky time. I think the first thing you've got to remember is the only people we can change is ourselves. Okay, we've got to start with yourself. If you're going to be, you're working remotely, you've got all these people, you're filling plates, and you've got all these different personalities. You've got extroverts, introverts, and those in between, and some of them are loving the lockdown because the introverts are not having to, they got off the hamster wheel a bit. And they like that because then they can just get on with it and they can be reflective. And then you've got the extroverts are going, oh my goodness, I hate this. What can I do? I've got to. There you go. Then I've got to,
basically me and my husband.
I need to volunteer for something. I've got to do something. I've got to get out there and fix somebody, something, anything. So they're having a terrible time. Then you've got the ambiverts in the middle who are actually quite liking it, sort of. They're getting on with it. There's something in the middle. But all 3 of them have got something in common. Not every one of them, but a lot of them, and that is they're missing their loved ones. And that is huge. That is really huge. So if you're leading a team remotely, one of the things to do is actually be that communicator with them, talk to them, because that's what they're needing. They're needing people. So as a manager, and you're wanting to motivate people of all these different personalities, some who are, are feeling apathetic, which drives me crazy personally. If somebody says something like, I can't be bothered, I rise to it. I think, what do you mean you can't be bothered? That's a terrible thing to say. So that's not right. I'm being intolerant. So I then have to check with myself. I check with myself, say, okay, Lynda, where are you coming from now? Why is that person push your buttons? What do you need to do? How are you choosing to use your time remotely as a manager, leading a team? And sometimes we can choose not to choose. Sometimes it's okay to choose not to do anything for a little while, not for long. Clearly, we're still employed, or we've still got a business to run. But sometimes it's okay to be angry or frustrated or upset or lonely or miserable or euphoric when people are dying. It's okay to feel all of these range of emotions and give yourself permission to do that. Once you've done that, then you can start thinking about all your different personalities in your team and talk to them, call them, get on the phone to them. How are you doing? How can I best help you? Tell me how you tick. Tell me what it's like to be you at the moment. Just tell me, and then I might have a clue in what we can do. And you've killed two birds with one stone. First of all, you're finding out information how you can deal with that person independently, but equally you're communicating with them by being with them, by them connecting with another human being. So that's the way I think it's a good start.
So there's a roller coaster that I know that people have talked to me about, this roller coaster of emotions, and like they're experiencing them all almost at once. And I wonder, what is that about?
This is unprecedented. This is the brain hates uncertainty. Okay, it fills in gaps. If it's got a gap, it fills it in, and that's when we get when we make mistakes and we make poor decisions. So the brain just hates any kind of uncertainty or not knowing what's going on, and that's extremely stressful. And when the brain is doing that, and we're in a very stressful situation, then we've got a secretions of cortisol that is in a chronic secretions of cortisol, which means that all the feel-good neurotransmitters are diminished. Like dopamine, serotonin. Serotonin is the happy chappy, all about mood, sleep, appetite, and emotion. Dopamine is about motivation, which is again why maybe some of the team members are not feeling motivated because they're feeling so stressed out about all this. Now, that is going to be a massive amount of different emotions. And remember that emotions are fleeting. They don't last long. So it's like this. It's like, it drives you crazy, and you don't know which way, your mood might be for a longer length of time, but your emotions are not. So, but it's okay. All of this is okay to feel. It's just normal being a human being. It's absolutely normal. And equally, because we can wind ourselves up about feeling like this, and feeling these mixtures and this seesaw of emotion going on, we start to feel guilty. And you've got to watch this word guilt, because guilt is one of the underpinnings of depression. So we don't want to go there. Just don't go there. Just give yourself a break. Speak to yourself, as if you're speaking to someone else, and show kindness, because it's all okay. We really do need to lighten up a bit and just give ourselves permission to breathe deeply and do nothing if we choose, and then recollect ourselves and start again.
Absolutely. So something that you put up on your LinkedIn profile really, really spoke to me. I'm going to read it out. It was, postpone worry until you need to. When you find yourself worrying about a future issue, postpone that worry for a pre-organized block of time, even if that is just later that day. In doing that, are we at risk of not facing it, or is that part of being able to cope with what we're coping with, what we're experiencing?
It's part of a coping mechanism, because if, for instance, we are worrying about something and we're trying to do something at the same time, we are not going to be able to do that very well. That whatever the task we're doing, we're not going to be able to do it very well because we're worrying about something. So that's nonsense. Park the worry. Get on with what you need to finish and need to do really, really well. Work on that, and then go back to the worry. And interestingly enough, sometimes it's not so bad after all.
Yeah.
Just because we're not overwhelmed by it, we put it in its box and we take the lid off, have a look at it now, go, okay, what is it I'm working on here? Then worry about it. And you look at it, go, well, it's not that bad. All I've got to do is this, and this, and I fixed it. Of course, some things are huge. Some things are massive, absolutely huge. And especially when we've got people who are very poorly or dying, those worries are going to stick with us, and they're much harder to put in their box. But it's worth having a go at it so that we're not in overwhelm and therefore not able to function properly.
Absolutely. And I think this speaks to the next point that came up around managers struggling with the pressures of solving big problems, and kind of worrying about not getting it right, because they're sitting in this space of worry. They're not able to make these decisions. So how can they manage that effectively? How can they make sure that they're in a place where they can act at speed when they need to?
One of the ways, what happens when we're in a stressful situation, as we've already mentioned, cortisol rages around the brain, doing its thing, doing a lot of damage. When we are in that kind of situation, we put our blinkers on. We put our blinkers on to focus on the perceived threat. We have to do that because in the days of fight or flight, and still we need that mechanism today, but if the perceived threat is really a problem, we have got to fix it. So we just think of that. But the trouble is we're so stressed and overwhelmed, we are, it's actually fight or run. So we need to stop that, just calm ourselves down and park cortisol a little bit more. So we need to put the brain in alpha frequency. Now, alpha frequency is, when you're not quite awake and you're not quite asleep, that time when you wake up in the morning and you're not quite roused yet, that's the most delicious time of the day because you put the brain in alpha frequency, which is like a light meditation. So you can put your brain in that frequency anytime during the day, but that's when it's naturally there as we wake up. You can put the brain in that frequency when perhaps you're looking at the rainfall, when you are just relaxing, staring out of the window. Staring out of the window is so good. It really is. I mean, when as children, the teachers used to say, will you pay attention and stop staring out of the window? No, let the child stare out of the window because their brain is in this alpha frequency, which is creative. Once we put the brain in a creative state, the answers come more easily to problems. Now, there is a chap called Graham Wallace, some years ago now, who is a very famous social psychologist, and he has 4 steps to what he considers to be efficient problem solving. And the first one he calls is preparation. So you're recognizing the problem, and you try to find a solution. The next stage is what I love, and that's incubation, which taps into this idea of alpha frequency. So basically what you do, we try to come up with a solution, it's not working, you're really frustrated, you're angry, you're go and do something else. Go out in the garden if you're blessed with having a garden. Go and do something with a nice bath. Go and do something where you just don't even think about it. By doing that, relaxing and thinking about something totally different that's not very onerous, we're just letting the problem sort of bubble away unconsciously. And then all of a sudden, ping, we come up with a better idea. It's like creating those aha moments, deliberately, consciously creating them. But by that incubation period is allowing that fermentation to go on. And that's when you get this illumination, which is step 3 of course, why didn't I think of that before? That's what we've got to do. And then the 4th step is you verify it. You verify, well, this aha moment, these ideas you've come out with when you've got the brain thinking about something totally innocuous and quite calming. And then you verify it saying, okay, will this solution work? And then maybe speak to your team members and you go, look, come up with this idea, what do you think? And thrash it out a bit. And then you've got your solution without being overwhelmed.
Absolutely. So it's almost like this need to slow down in order to speed up, this need to, yeah. And daydreaming is good.
Pardon?
And daydreaming is
wonderful. absolutely wonderful. Daydream away, and honestly, you do your health so much better. You know, your brain, your physical health, your brain health, everything works better once you've done that. And equally, you get a sense of achievement because you've just you've come up with this idea, and it can be implemented, and it can work. And you're going to, it's like a weight lifted off your shoulders. And please congratulate yourself for coming up with the idea, and don't go straight into the next problem going, oh my God, I'm in a state again, and you're all overwhelmed. Just give yourself a moment to pat yourself on the back and think, yeah, I did good there. I did really good.
And I imagine celebrating with your teams, it's almost like focusing on the small wins, however small they are, in order to kind of reinforce that feeling.
Absolutely. And that's when you can be a bit mischievous. You can be a bit sort of inject a bit of fun. So if you're coming together as a team remotely, you're all on your laptops, on different chat rooms, whatever you are, you just inject a bit of mischief within your own personality, within what you would find acceptable and normal, and wouldn't, not to upset anyone else on the team, but just be a bit, just say, yay, we did it. I don't know, let's all have a remote pizza. Yeah. Let's all just, I don't know, anything at all where you inject a little bit of fun as a celebration, and everyone will come together as a stronger team for it, even the introverts.
Mm-hmm. And just talking on this, kind of making decisions, another one of your posts really spoke to me, and it was around following your gut feel not being a metaphor. So I wondered if you could talk a bit about that and the relationship our brains have with our gut, and why that's actually a thing.
Oh, it's a big thing. That we are finding out more and more and more about the gut. It's part of the enteric nervous system, which is basically the gut is the messages are going from the gut to the brain, or through the vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve we have in the body. There is more information going from the gut to the brain than there is from the brain to the gut. Okay, there are 100 million neurons in the gut. Serotonin is in the gut. There's a lot going on in the gut that is very valuable. Now, there's been tons of research about whether we should listen to our gut when it comes to any kind of decision making or problem solving. There was a very famous story it was actually a documentary on the television some while ago now, and it was about a senior fire officer who sent they were all men at the time, they all sent his men into this industrial building where there was a terrible fire going on with chemicals and the like. And all of a sudden, the senior firefighter was on the radio, said, right, get out now. And the men in the building were going, no, I'm fine. We've got it, it's under control. He said, get out now, it's an order. As the last man ran out of the building exploded. And his gut apparently had told him that there's something very wrong, and he saved all the lives of his men. So the psychologists decided to investigate this, and they were researching this, and they were asking questions, they were doing all sorts of things to try to work out what it was. And apparently he recognized how the smoke was behaving, and in an unconscious memory, way deep unconscious memory, he didn't remember it at all. Well, apparently when he was a junior fire officer, the smoke in a particular incident was behaving in exactly the same way when the building exploded. So deep down in his subconscious, he had locked this memory away. Now, the theory behind this is that it appeared it was his gut instinct that told him, the men, to get out of the building. But in actual fact, it was an unconscious memory from experience. So what we are now believing, or what some psychologists will tell you, is that the gut is actually somehow telling you about unconscious experiences, unconscious memories, to help you solve things. So relying on your gut to problem solve is really good if it's an area that you're experienced in. Mm-hmm. If you're relying on your gut for something that you're not experienced in, it might be better that you actually listen to it, but verify it much more with some concrete evidence, some more objective evidence that's going on. So that's the theories, but what we're finding out about the gut is increasing on a daily basis. So watch this space. There'll be even more information about it. It's really it's good fun.
So one more quote that I got from your social media was around preparation helping you to cope, and you said that you do your research, be organized, and this is, I imagine, about that verifying, and put contingency plans in place, then manage your problems with tenacity, strength, and resilience by digging deep. Now, I wanted to know what's behind the digging deep. What is important about digging deep, and what does that mean?
I think digging deep means many things to different people. For me, it means rolling my sleeves up and just getting on with it. Just absolutely getting on with it. Really just, okay, this is it. I'm going in. Imagine that there was a story many, many years ago of a woman in France, I believe, whose child was caught under the wheels of a transit van. And these men were trying to lift the van off the child, and they couldn't, but she did. She dug deep. She wanted to enough. So what I mean is, if you've done your research, you've got your plan, you've got everything else, you're going, oh, I'll just go on Facebook. Oh, I'll just do something else. Oh, I'll just go on Instagram. I'll just whatever. I'll just make a cup of coffee. Where did those biscuits go? That's not helpful. If you've got your plan, get on with it. Get out of your own way. Stop the self-doubts and just dig deep. Know that you can do it because it's all set out in front of you, and just do it. That's what I think. That's my version of digging deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really kind of connected with that. And I think what I also took from it is kind of naming my fear. It was kind of like recognizing okay, I feel anxious, but what exactly am I feeling anxious about? And once I dug into that, I could then actually do something about it. So I could say to myself, okay, this is what it's actually about. What am I in control of in terms of that thing? And now I feel like I can actually do something productive about that. And that for some reason, I don't know what the kind of psychology behind that is, but it kind of appeased my anxiety a bit, being able to do something that is in my control to do.
Absolutely. And again, remember, the brain doesn't like the uncertainty. So what you've done is you put control back in the frame. And talking of framing, you could reframe the word anxiety. You could reframe it to excitement. I'm really excited about doing this. Yeah. Just play a few games. Play a few tricks on yourself to actually get something done and do it well. That's how I see it. So, for instance, I'm a professional speaker. If I'm feeling anxious or nervous about something, I'm not normally nervous when I go on stage, but just in case something's gone wrong that day or whatever, I'll reframe it. Go, I am so excited. This is really exciting. And the brain goes, oh, she's excited. Different. It's different.
Well, I think our words hold so much power, and I don't think we realize that actually we're constantly instructing our brain almost in what we're saying. And if we're saying we're anxious or we're scared of going up on stage, that's what we're feeding in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's self-destructive. All of those negative words are really self-destructive unless they are helping you, which is very rare. It is those negative words. Semantics matter. Sticks and stones don't break our bones, but words never hurt us is nonsense. They hurt a lot and they stick. So we do need to be careful of the language we use, especially when we talk about ourselves to ourselves.
Absolutely. And people can go to your LinkedIn, Lynda Shaw, and what website? We can always link the website to this as well. Is there a website that they can go to?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. It's www.drlyndashaw.com. That's drlyndashaw.com.
Thank you so much, Lynda. It has been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I've learned so much. It's a challenging time, and there's no profound words that are going to necessarily fix things, but just keeping your chin up, have courage, stay connected online, and take care, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.